What is up, you guys? Welcome back to my channel, and if you're new here, just welcome. My name is Gemma Jade, but today we are going to be discussing the bizarre and frightening death of Magdalena. I'm not gonna lie, guys, this is one that has fascinated me for a very long time, but I was somewhat reluctant to cover it due to the fact that I don't know how to play the video or audio for you all. However, I will definitely, I know I've been forgetting, leave them linked in the description box, so check them out if you want after you watch this. This case is terrifying to me because of the implications, and I just can't get enough of it, to say the least. Let's get into it, the case of the mysterious and strange death of Magdalena. In 2017, a young Polish woman bought 2 tickets to Egypt in order to surprise her boyfriend with a trip to the Red Sea resort town of Marsa Adam. However, her boyfriend was having something that's only been described as quote-unquote passport issues in most cases, and he was ineligible for a visa and therefore unable to go. Magda looked into it, but she wasn't able to get any sort of refund, and she also tried selling the tickets on social media and online and also failed at that. So she decided to go on the trip all by herself and check in with her boyfriend every step of the way. She arrived in Egypt on April 25th, 2017, and everything seemed ordinary. Magda did call and check in with her boyfriend, and everything seemed fine at first, but eventually one of the calls was quite disturbing and would be the kickstart to every other strange, unexplained, and unknown thing that would happen in the long chain of events that would eventually lead to the end of her young life. She was hysterically crying and honestly not really making much sense. It was almost as though she were afraid to talk about and say what was causing her to be behaving this way. Her words were in Polish, which is obviously her native tongue, but she was almost inaudible and unintelligible as she spoke to him. However, she very clearly blurted something out, and it was, quote, "They have all sorts of tricks here. I cannot say what happened. Take me away, please," end quote. She repeatedly also spoke only one letter, the letter M, a few times for seemingly no reason. There was a man with her who seemed rather mysterious and who seemed also to never want to leave Magda's side while she spoke to her boyfriend. And during this particular bizarre video call, you can hear the man say, quote, "This call is a waste of time," end of quote. And then he disconnected Magda's call with her boyfriend while she was still completely in hysterics. The man was eventually later identified as a tour guide, and his name was Mahmoud Carey, and it was unclear what he had to do with Magdalena, why he was, in charge of her phone calls or whatever. Like, why was this guy there? Magda's boyfriend luckily immediately called back and was able to once again get her on the video chat, but she was now more hysterical than ever and refused to explain what was going on, and then refused to even talk to him at all. Her boyfriend begged Magdalena to tell him what was happening, and he kept reminding her that she was his angel and she could trust him. It was then he began to start to make arrangements for a friend of his to go to Egypt and pick Magda up the very next day. That was the fastest flight that they can get her boyfriend's friend there to get her. Unfortunately, she wouldn't make it even that short amount of time, and it seemed heartbreakingly like she knew it too. In the meantime, after the video calls that were so terrifying and worrisome to her seemingly loving boyfriend back home in Poland, Magda's erratic and somewhat crazy behavior seemed to get much worse. She started to send text messages to her closest friends and family, telling them that she was hearing strange voices in her room, and then asking them, quote, "Where are you?" end quote, and telling them, quote, "Come to me," end quote. These people were nowhere near Egypt and most likely were back in Poland where she had left them. Some of the staff at the resort where she was staying came forward claiming to have witnessed Magdalena shouting into a phone in the lobby there as well. She was found lying imperfectly still, wearing nothing but a bathrobe, on the floor in the hallway out in front of her hotel room. She was also seen numerous times simply roaming the halls of the hotel and wildly gesticulating with her hands. You guys thought I was bad. Though having some sort of silent yet very heated conversation with either herself or someone or something that wasn't there or just wasn't visible to anyone else. I mean, is this paranormal? Magdalena was also said to have been constantly looking over her shoulder and becoming more and more paranoid by the minute. She would seem as though she were constantly avoiding someone, only no one knew or could see who this person could have possibly been or where they were. It was like she was convinced someone was after her. 3 days after arriving in Egypt, that mutual friend of hers and her boyfriend, the one that the boyfriend was sending to go and get her, had finally arrived to help get Magdalena out of Egypt and back home, but instead of accepting his help, she seems to have spiraled further into whatever insanity or conspiracy she was currently living in. Once they arrived at the airport, she took off all her clothes in front of everyone who was standing around for seemingly no reason and was described as having been extremely and violently agitated. Unfortunately, because of this, the airline banned her from boarding her flight home. She was finally taken to a local hospital, but things only got more bizarre and more sad from there. The hospital staff reported that she was both unpredictable and extremely uncooperative. Remember, she was paranoid or something, and apparently she didn't trust the people around her or the hospital staff that was, presumably at least, there to try and help her so she could eventually and sooner rather than later go home. Once she was admitted and brought to her hospital room, she began screaming like a lunatic after making several attempts to jump directly out of the second-story window. She had to be restrained. She would kick at and punch the hospital staff and anyone who came near her. Eventually, she was put in a private room and tied down to the bed. Unfortunately, they kept her on the higher floor, and when she was able to convince the nurse to untie her, saying that she had to use the bathroom, she beat the nurse up, attacked her, and then, seemingly in a state of complete and total delirium, she jumped out of the second-floor window, through the window, to her death. She threw herself out of the window and landed 2 floors down, face first, on the concrete steps below her. Magdalena Zuk was immediately sent to a much larger and more well-equipped hospital for the situation, but unfortunately it would make no difference at all, and she was officially pronounced dead just hours later. Obviously, something like this, an extremely beautiful and young Polish girl jumping to her death while vacationing in Egypt after having some sort of mental break, was all over the news. There was nonstop around-the-clock coverage in her home country of Poland, and people wanted and insisted upon getting some answers here. Why had Magdalena been acting so strangely, and who did she believe was out to get her and therefore seemingly running from? The call to her boyfriend where she was first hysterical, the cryptic messages in the letter M she kept on repeating would all need answering for, but so far, nothing new was being reported or learned at all. The hospital claimed this was a run-of-the-mill suicide and that she was suffering some sort of psychosis. Nothing to see here, let's move along. 2 separate autopsies concluded that this was, in fact, a suicide and that she most likely did have some sort of psychotic break right beforehand. Her family, her boyfriend, and pretty much everyone who knew her felt like there was much more to this and refused to accept the explanation that Magdalena had taken her own life. They were convinced that she would only have been behaving so erratically for good reason, and they were hell-bent on finding out who or what that reason was. As the Polish media descended upon the resort town in Egypt, rumors of organized crime, sex trafficking, sexual assaults, murder, elaborate cover-ups, and all kinds of foul play began to emerge. The media, to its credit, immediately took notice and kept on investigating. So, let's go over the very strange and ominous clues and the things that came to light during the aftermath of Magdalena Zuk's death. Her autopsies had not been performed until days later, days after she died, and this helped tremendously with the sensationalization of the case that would keep it front and center, at least in the Polish media. It's alleged by all involved that the authorities who worked and investigated the case in Egypt were extremely evasive and very vague. The theories, the rumors, the coincidences, the conspiracies all abounded, with someone claiming Magda was actually found in her room with head injuries, though I don't know what this is alleging, or like if they meant her hotel room or the hospital room. I have no idea. I just figured I'd bring it up because it jumped out at me. I don't dig too deep into pure speculation, guys, but feel free to let me know if you do and what you all think or things you may have heard that you believe, but let me know why you believe it, okay? I'm really interested to see what you guys think here. Eventually, a Polish reality TV show did a highly sensationalized expose on the case, with the reporter being someone very famous in Poland, allegedly, who knew how to sensationalize even the most boring and weakest of cases, let alone something so lurid as to what was being said had allegedly happened to Magda, and his name was Krzysztof Rutkowski. His expose reporting on the case led it to being even more hyperbolized than before. Allegations were all over the now frenzied media of sexual assault happening not only to Magda, but to tourists in general in this area of Egypt, and the alleged fact that Magdalena Zhouk herself was forced into some sort of sex trafficking or prostitution. It was alleged that the resort itself and most of the staff who worked there were all in on this as well. It was a grand money-making scheme. And factually, it is actually, especially over there. And I mean that no offense. I just mean from my research and things that I've picked up, that's just facts of what's going on over there. And everywhere, really. I mean, it's happening here in the United States, too. But the allegations were serious. It was that the resort kind of sets up these beautiful tourist girls to be sold into sex trafficking or slavery or forced into some kind of prostitution or drug muling. One reporter, whose name was Myra Poreba, said of it all, quote, "The first 2 weeks were crazy. Everyone was making up their own stories and people were fighting on social media about them," end quote. There were further allegations that hit much closer to home when the belief that Magda's own boyfriend was using her as some sort of drug mule into Egypt, or that she had gone there to secretly work for him as the prostitute, essentially with him being her pimp. There is no evidence at all to back up these claims about Magda's boyfriend, and of course he emphatically denied all of the rumors going on about him and his relationship with her. There was also an unsubstantiated rumor that she had been sexually assaulted in her hotel room by a quote-unquote gang of men and had a mental breakdown because of it. The autopsies, which most people by now were not putting much stock into, claimed she had not been assaulted in that way at all, but still and all, almost everyone involved believed she was murdered and that Egyptian authorities, possibly in the interest of protecting tourism, were covering it all up. Basically, it's that they know full well what happened to Magda and just aren't saying anything. The official autopsies also claimed there were no drugs at all in her system or alcohol when she died. The tour guide who was present when Magda made the first hysterical call to her boyfriend, Mahmoud Carey, was questioned by police and found not to even be a person of interest, despite Magda clearly being scared to speak around him and saying the letter M, which was the initial to his first name. There were quite a few people with that first name initial involved in this case, though. So Mahmoud Carey was considered to not have been involved at all, even after the police received quite a few reports from people who knew him and claimed that he allegedly had a history of either drugging or attempting to drug women at the resort. It was actually alleged that he had, and here's the exact quote, "a reputation for attempting to drug women," end quote. Magdalena was supermodel gorgeous, and I highly encourage all of you to go after this video and watch the videos of her, not only on the video chat with her boyfriend, but also the surveillance from the hospital. John Lordan covered it so well. If I could make a suggestion, he did it on Brain Scratch, and I suggest you take a look at that if you find this case frustrating or interesting at all. The resort and the Egyptian authorities were very clearly trying to make this whole case disappear and sweep it under a rug in order, as I just stated, to protect tourism to not only the resort, but Egypt itself as a whole. Obviously, their behavior only helped to amplify the numerous conspiracy theories already surrounding this case. So guys, this is the end where we think long and hard about what actually happened here, and we will most likely never know. I know the questions are going to come. I can see them already as to whether or not any of this is true, and I don't like to state definitives about conversations I've had with the spirit of victims like Magdalena Zhouk. All I will say is that one of the rumors mentioned in this video is 100% true, and someone whose initial was M had everything to do with it and had been doing it with tourists for a long time. Magda fought back and wasn't going to be quiet. She was then drugged and made to look like a rambling and ranting, stark mad lunatic until finally she realized she wasn't going to ever make it home alive to tell the story of what had happened to her, and took matters into her own hands by jumping onto those concrete steps, probably thinking there would be some sort of investigation. Maybe. I mean, she was pretty out of it. So let's just say that's my theory, so I don't offend anybody who doesn't believe in mediumship or that I can speak to spirits like Magdalena. Like I said, a lot of people don't believe in mediumship, and I could end up inadvertently further upsetting Magdalena's loved ones should they ever come across this video for whatever reason. Why would a seemingly normal young lady who was just out for some fun, visiting a new country and traveling, have broken down the way she had, and almost immediately upon arriving there too? I couldn't find any information as to whether or not she had any past issues with mental health or psychosis or even trauma, but I'm pretty sure that if she had, then they would have been the very first thing the administration, investigators, and the media, all in Egypt and all wanting this to just quietly move along and go away, would have brought to light. This case is constantly discussed in the true crime community, and trust me, when you see the video of this poor girl when speaking to her boyfriend that day, you will not only get the creeps, for some reason, it just makes my skin crawl, but you will also be heartbroken when you feel her pulling you into her pain through the screen, and how helpless her boyfriend must have felt is just more than I could bear. That's all I have for you today, guys. Please give this video a big thumbs up if you enjoyed spending this time with me and hanging out with me. Also, subscribe if you haven't already, and spread the love by sharing this video. Check out the description box for some important links, how to make donations to the channel, PayPal, Patreon, Cash App, and Varo. I also have an Amazon wish list gift link where you can buy crystals and decks and send them to me privately. I really appreciate all of the financial donations. I've been saying Gemma Jade Oracles is coming soon, and by the time this video is released, it's either going to be there or it's going to be a few days off, because everything is pretty much ready to go. I'm just waiting on one little thing, which if it doesn't happen by Thursday, I'm filming this on Sunday, then I'm just going to go about it a different way, and it'll take like another day, and then we'll be set. So I'm hoping by this time next week, so Sunday, August 4th or 5th, the 3rd, 4th, 5th, the 3rd, I should definitely have my website up by then, if not the next day, the Monday. So, okay, now that I've rambled, guys, you're going to see me on November 6th on the Paraflix Network on Disembodied Voices for a two-parter episode. I will remind you guys as the time gets nearer. Don't forget to vote for me on September 6th. You have to vote by my government name, though. I'm going to share it again in the community tab. The link, you just press on it and vote. Voting opens at, I believe it's like 12 or it's 10 Pacific, so it's like 12 or 1 Eastern. Figure it out with your own time zone. You just go in and you click to vote for me to win $13,000, 2 nights in Buffalo Bill's house, a photo shoot with Kane Hodder for Rue Morgue magazine, and a walk-on role in new indie film. I gotta say, I'm in it for the money and the trip to Buffalo Bill's house. Not that the photo shoot's gonna be half bad. I mean, it's all great. Please go and vote for me. It means so, so much to me. I can't even imagine if I won, but I'm trying to manifest winning that contest, and I need you guys to help me do it. Guys, thank you so much for the donations. Those of you who got personals, if you would like a personal intuitive oracle from me, or if you'd like to know more about my business, my manifestation intention sprays, my spiritual helper boxes and packs, all the things that I offer, sage bundles and moon water and all that fun, crazy stuff, hit me up, okay? You can still make orders even though the website isn't quite up yet. Just email me at GemmaJadeParanormal@gmail.com. I'll give you pricing. I'll explain to you the things that I have and that I do, everything that's going to be on the website. Thank you to everyone for supporting me. I love you guys. If you donate $20 or more a month to Patreon, you will automatically receive a intuitive oracle reading from me every single month as a thank you. Guys, thanks so much. Be kind to each other. It doesn't cost anything. Be kind to yourselves and never accept anything less than others being kind to you. Always go in grace. Be blessed. Smile at a stranger, and I'll see you guys next time.